Good evening, everyone. This is Kim McPorter, Director of Community Development with the Village of Woodridge. And I want to let everyone please send in all comments and questions with respect to tonight's case considerations to comments with an S, PC at vil.woodridge.il.us. Staff here, once we receive those comments, staff will read those questions and or comments, into the official record during the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. This is Joe Presbiorka, Chairman of the Plan Commission. I call this tonight's meeting to order for our first ever online Plan Commission meeting. Commissioner Baylog, can you please call the roll?
Yes, this is Commissioner Baylog. Baylog here. Cortez.
Here.
Gaspar.
Here.
Hendel Kanunen.
Here.
Durag.
Here.
Sealander.
Here.
Presbiorka.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Our next item on tonight's agenda is approval of the minutes of the Plan Commission meeting on March 2nd, 2020. Do I hear a motion or any suggestions to make any changes?
I'll motion we approve. Second.
You might have to say your name because we can't see you. To who made the motion and who seconded?
Jeff Gasper motioned. And Jeff Cortez seconded.
Thank you.
Gaspar.
Aye.
Cortez.
Aye.
Baylog, aye. Hendel Kanunen.
Aye.
Durag.
Aye.
Sealander.
Aye.
Presbiorka.
Aye.
Minutes passed.
Thank you. Okay, our first case tonight is for a Woodridge Plan Commission consideration of a special use permit for a health and athletic club, 1001 75th Street, Unit 113A, Club Pilates. Applicant is Casey Woodridge, LLC, Kristen Cohn. Tonight's consideration will begin with a public hearing. And we have, obviously, as you can see on the slides there or on the presentation, the email address to send in any comments or questions for the public hearing. Staff will be collecting those during the presentation. So with that, we'll start into the public hearing. This agenda item is a public hearing of the Plan Commission convened for the purpose of considering a request for a special use permit for a health and athletic club use for Club Pilates located at 1001 75th Street, Suite 113A in the Woodgrove Festival Shopping Center. The applicant is Casey Woodridge, LLC, 118 North Vine Street, Hinsdale, Illinois, 60521. The applicant is seeking a request for a special use permit for a health and athletic club use for Club Pilates. Notice of the public hearing on the matter to be considered was published in the Bugle on April 1st, 2020. A copy of the certificate of publication shall be made a part of this hearing record as Village Exhibit A. Let the record reflect that all other notices required by law have been given. Is staff ready to present their report?
I am.
Okay, proceed, Phil.
This is Phil Green, planner with the Village of Woodridge. Kim, are you going to swear me in?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was muted. Yes, staff and applicant for this particular case, I will be swearing you both in concurrently due to the nature of this meeting. Please virtually raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. And Kristen, if you can please unmute to do the same.
I do.
Thank you.
Alrighty, and I would also like to make staff's presentation and enter it into the record as Exhibit B for tonight. So the case before you tonight, Commissioners, is for a special use permit for a health and athletic club to be located at the newly created Suite 113A at Woodgrove Festival. Just for your reference, and as is outlined in staff's report, the unit is the former Children's Place, which from this screenshot kind of taken here from Google Maps, this unit here next to Paolucci Jewelers and the current Starbucks Coffee has been subdivided into 2 units. One of those units has been leased by a Pinot's Palette Paint and Sip, and the other one is the one that's under consideration here tonight. The proposal before you is for a Club Pilates location. Club Pilates, as the applicant will explain during their presentation, is an instructor-led class-based fitness class and utilizes a lot of equipment and has a small retail space available as well. This is a use that is somewhat found within the Woodgrove Festival already with an Orange Theory Fitness, which is relevant for the parking question, which is before you now. So this is something that will be, again, covered a little bit more in detail later tonight. But to summarize, the parking found within Woodgrove Festival is sufficient for this use. This use has peak times that are very early in the morning or kind of that 5:30 p.m. slot, which should not clash with peak times for the other uses found at Woodgrove Festival. Before you is a table of parking requirements based on both the situation if the Starbucks case that will be heard later tonight were to be approved and if it were to not be approved. And in either scenario, the parking should be more than adequate for the proposal. As I said, this is a relatively straightforward case for presentation purposes at least. And that concludes staff's presentation, and the applicant is also here to make a presentation.
Thank you. Staff, the applicants will now present their application and explain the approvals being sought.
Kristen, are you ready to begin?
I am. Thank you. First, thank you to the Village of Woodridge for hearing my case and taking the time out and making the special accommodations for the virtual meeting. My name is Kristen Kahn, and I am the franchise owner. I am seeking approval to open a Club Pilates franchise Pilates studio. Club Pilates is a boutique fitness studio franchise and started in San Diego in 2007. It is expanded around the globe, bringing Pilates to hundreds of thousands of people. The franchise serves over 8 million workouts each year to its dedicated members. Club Pilates is the largest Pilates brand with more than 600 studios open and still growing. The Club Pilates franchise is ranked 69th in Entrepreneur Magazine's 2020 Franchise 500 list and the fastest growing fitness franchise magazine's Inc. 5,500. Pilates is an exercise method that was created by Joseph Pilates in the 1920s. It's a low impact total body workout that strengthens your core and spinal health and keeps you moving well throughout life. The Club Pilates model is to offer modernized Pilates with a group practice and expanded state-of-the-art equipment. So I think if you go back to the first slide, that's a picture of the studio. That's the Club Pilates Westmont studio, but the one in Woodridge will look very similar. And then on the right is an instructor leading the group class on the reformer. We have several different pieces of equipment at each participant's station as a way to challenge a participant's strength and balance in different ways. The specialized equipment is on the next slide. Thank you. So again, on the left, you'll see that there's a group class led by an instructor, and on the right is more of a photo of the different types of equipment. The reformer, we offer TRX, bar fusion classes, and the springboard. All of our group classes are led by a comprehensively certified instructor who creates the class flow and teaches a participant safely and effectively. We offer leveled classes so anyone can be any age and any experience level to get started and advance as they grow in their Pilates practice. We offer a free 30-minute introductory class and convenient class times throughout the day. This model isn't typical for other Pilates studios and has been extremely successful in making reformer Pilates more accessible to more people at a great value. While the group classes and memberships comprise the largest percentage of our revenue, we do offer one-on-one private training in a separate room in our private studio, which is on the next slide. The private studio is on the left. That features a different kind of piece of equipment, but it also has the reformer combination machine under that table. And then also we sell clothing and fitness accessories in our retail area, which you can see a picture of a sample of that on our right. Club Pilates Woodridge will be open every day of the week with classes as early as 6 a.m. on select weekdays and as late as 7:30 p.m. on select weeknights. Weekend hours typically start at 7:30 a.m. on Saturday and 8 a.m. on Sunday. There's only one group studio, and the group classes have a maximum capacity of 12 people. Our most popular class times tend to be early mornings around 6 a.m., 9 a.m., and 5:30 p.m. Weekends are also popular with classes ending by noon or 1 p.m. Club Pilates Woodridge will be my fourth Club Pilates studio. I also own Club Pilates studios in Westmont, Oak Park, and Elmhurst. What questions can I answer?
Commissioners, any questions for the applicant or staff at this time?
So you said at most you'll have 12 people, customers in at one time?
Right, so the maximum size of the group class is 12, and then depending on the time of day, sometimes the classes can have as few as a few people or at most 12.
And then the private room could make a 13th or not?
It could, and then, but you would have also an additional instructor in that private room.
Okay, thanks. This was Sealander, by the way.
Ms. Cohn, this is Chairman Presbyorka. When do you, if given approval soon, when do you plan on starting construction, and when's your target date to open the franchise?
So I guess it's my understanding that the approval from the village wouldn't be until there's another meeting subsequent to this. And then the permit approval process that we have to go through, our construction would likely take between 8 and 10 weeks to build out the space to our requirements. So I wouldn't see it happening until late fall
Got it. Thank you.
or possibly November or December.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay. At this time, we'll now give members of our virtual public the opportunity to email in their questions and comments to be read into the official record. As was shown earlier on the slides and is showing now on the slides here, please send in your questions and comments to commentspc@vil.woodridge.il.us. Upon receipt, staff will read in your questions and or comments into the official record, and the applicant's witnesses, and the village staff will respond as needed. So staff, have we received in any communication so far from folks that are watching this online?
This is Director Porter, Chairman Presbyorka, not as of yet. Staff is manning the website now and our emails to, find out if we receive any comments. Additionally, as a part of the public notice, a phone call was provided within the public notification mailing, and both at 6 p.m. and at 7 p.m. today. Upon checking the voicemail for that phone line, staff had not received any voicemails regarding this case.
Thank you.
Viewing public, just due to the delay between the live streaming of this presentation, excuse me, or public hearing into YouTube, there is about a 1-minute delay. So the quietness that you may be hearing is on purpose. We are just checking emails to ensure that we're not receiving any comments.
Thank you. You can just, Director Porter, you just let us know when we can start up again then.
Will do. We'll just give it a couple more minutes. Again, if there are comments or questions regarding the Club Pilates case consideration at Woodgrove Festival, please send us an email at comments with an S, PC, at vil.woodridge.il.us. Chairman, at this point in time, I am seeing no comments being received by staff with respect to this case consideration.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no public comments, do the applicants desire to make a brief summation? Ms. Cohen?
No, I guess I've stated everything. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. The Plan Commission will be considering its recommendation at its regular meeting tonight. That meeting is not a public hearing and no statements or testimony will be permitted. At this time, I would like to ask the Plan Commission for a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Commissioner Handel Kanunid. I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Commissioner Jarrag. I second that.
Okay, please call the roll.
Handel Kununen,
Aye.
Gerard,
Aye.
Baylog, aye. Cortez,
Aye.
Gaspar,
Aye.
Sealander,
Aye.
Presbyorka.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, so now we're into our regular discussion of this case. Commissioners have any questions for staff or the applicants that weren't answered during the public hearing portion? Okay, seeing none. Staff, would you like to maybe review the recommendations and the actions necessary?
Absolutely, thank you. This is Phil Green, planner again speaking. So tonight, commissioners, a total of 2 motions will be needed. The first one would be to make a motion to adopt the findings of fact, which you can find beginning on page 32 of your agenda packets tonight. So you would need to make a motion to adopt those findings of fact for a special use as contained in that Exhibit B and as modified, if you so desire, by the Plan Commission. And then the second motion you would need to make tonight would be to recommend to the Mayor and Board of Trustees approval of a special use permit for a health and athletic club for 1001 75th Street, Unit 113A, subject to compliance with all applicable village codes and ordinances. And again, just for commissioners' references, those 2 motions can be found beginning at the bottom of page 29 of your packets tonight.
Thank you, Phil. Any questions or discussion points of the findings of fact? Okay, seeing none, can I hear a motion?
This is Commissioner Cortez. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the findings of fact for a special use as contained in Exhibit B.
This is Commissioner Jarrag. I second that.
Cortez,
Aye.
Gerard,
Aye.
Baylog, aye. Gaspar,
Aye.
Handel Kununen,
Aye.
Sealander,
Aye.
Presbyorka.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, now we need a recommendation, or excuse me, a motion on the recommendation, staff's recommendation.
It's Commissioner Gasper. I'll recommend or make a motion to recommend to the mayor and board trustees approval of a special use permit for a health and athletic club for 1001 75th Street, Unit 113-A, subject to compliance with all applicable village codes and ordinance.
This is Commissioner Cortez, I would second.
Gasper,
Aye.
Cortez,
Aye.
Bailog, aye. Handel Kununun,
Aye.
Girag,
Aye.
Sealander,
Aye.
Presbyarka.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Recommendation, motion carries as well. Ms. Cohn, congratulations and good luck with the rest of your application process.
Thank you.
Okay, the next case on tonight's agenda is Woodridge, Plan Commission consideration of a special use permit for a drive-through facility and amendment to final plan and plat of plan unit development for Lot 4 of Woodgrove Festival, Starbucks, 1001 75th Street. The applicant is North American Real Estate. Tonight's consideration will also contain a public hearing. This agenda item is a public hearing of the Plan Commission convened for the purpose of considering a request for a special use permit for a drive-through facility for a new standalone Starbucks building proposed in the northeast portion of the existing parking lot of the Woodgrove Festival Shopping Center located at 1001 75th Street. The applicant is Nair Woodridge Management LLC, 1901 North Roselle Road, Suite 650, Schaumburg, Illinois, 60195. The applicant is seeking a request for a special use permit for a drive-through facility for a new standalone Starbucks building. Notice of the public hearing on the matter to be considered was published in the Bugle on April 1st, 2020. A copy of the certificate of publication shall be made part of this hearing as Village Exhibit A. Let the record reflect that all other notices required by law have been given. Is staff ready to present the report?
I am. And Kim, would you like to swear us in, the applicant and myself?
Yes, due to the nature of this meeting, I will be swearing in both staff and applicant concurrently. Please raise your right hand virtually. Do you swear that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And
Scott
applicant?
Schuster, I do.
Thank you.
Scott DiGilio, I do.
Corey Bruce, I do.
Okay, thank you very much. So I am Jenny Horn with the Village of Woodridge. I'd first like to enter staff's report into the record as Exhibit B and the presentation before you this evening as Exhibit C. So we are not going far. We're staying within the Woodgrove Festival Shopping Center at the southwest corner of 75th Street and Lamont Road. The request before you this evening is a special use permit request for a drive-through facility and an amendment to the final plan and plat of planned unit development for Lot 4 of Woodgrove Festival. The applicant, North American Real Estate, is requesting to build a 2,400 square foot freestanding Starbucks building with drive-through, outdoor patio, and associated parking. Their request does require the reconfiguring of the two easternmost drive aisles currently serving the shopping center. The exterior of the proposed building includes mostly masonry building with ephes, stone, and cement board accents, which is the current prototypical building for Starbucks. The site is designed with a drive-through going east and then north around the building and will be surrounded by 48 parking spaces. Within the drive-through lane, there will be 9 stacking spaces from the drive-through entrance to the window. Additionally, there will be sufficient space in the adjacent drive aisle to accommodate 11 additional cars, providing up to 20 stacking spaces for the drive-through. Now, based on the traffic and parking study provided by the applicant, which has been substantiated by the village's consulting engineer V3, the provided stacking spaces for the drive-through will be adequate to accommodate the expected demand. Note that this finding was based off of a survey of a similarly located existing Starbucks locations on 2 main roadways, which indicated that peak demand during that morning peak rush would be an average of 6 cars with a maximum at any one time of 11 cars. So sufficient space within the proposed drive-through and drive aisle to accommodate that. There are also directional signs proposed at the north and south drive aisle entrances off the main east-west drive aisle, as well as next to the drive-through lane. And there is a stop sign and a do not enter sign at the drive aisle exit as well to provide additional signage and direction. As it relates to the parking, previous parking relief was granted for the overall shopping center. In total, the project will require the elimination of 49 existing parking stalls. What's proposed, including the elimination of these stalls, is 1,100 parking spaces for the entire shopping center. As also noted in the traffic and parking study that was submitted by the applicant, the proposed 1,100 parking spaces that will serve the shopping center will be adequate to accommodate the projected peak parking demand of the shopping center. And this does account for the reduction in the 49 spaces to accommodate the Starbucks building, all vacant retail spaces, assuming that those are filled and occupied, as well as seasonal variations, such as the holiday shopping season. So going back to the building design a bit, Starbucks is requesting 3 wall signs, one on the north, one on the east, and one on the west sides of the building. They are seeking relief to allow signage on all 3 sides. Per the village code, signs are only permitted on 2 sides of the building. The proposed size of the signs, which totals 83 square feet, is well below the maximum 250 square feet that is permitted by the village code. Additionally, the applicants are requesting a 6-foot tall monument ground sign on lot 4. Because the building and the proposed site is not being proposed to be subdivided from lot 4 as a separate outlot, an additional outlot ground sign is not permitted. And there are 2 existing ground signs located on lot 4, one at each of the Lamont Road entrances. So therefore, the applicants are also seeking relief to allow an additional ground sign on lot 4. As you can see on this slide, the landscape plan, the proposed ground sign is located just northwest of the existing Hollywood Boulevard sign that is along Lamont Road, north of the proposed building. For landscaping, the applicants are proposing a significant amount with a mix of trees and shrubs in the parking lot around the foundation of the building, as well as the perimeter of the project area. Due to some space constraints and to maintain as much parking as possible, the applicants are requesting some relief from the strict conformance of all required landscaping requirements of the village code, such as reduced width of the western circulation border and elimination of some of the required parking lots and an intermediate island landscaping to accommodate the drive-through and other existing conditions. There are a total of 10 deviations that are being requested by the applicant. All are outlined on pages 43 and 44 of staff's report. I've addressed a majority of those requests in my presentation. The applicant will also address in their presentation, which is forthcoming. So unless there are any questions, that concludes staff's report, and I would like to turn it over to staff or to the applicant.
Thank you, Jenny. Commissioners, any questions for staff before the applicants present? Okay, seeing none, let's proceed.
So this is Scott Schust. I'll be doing the brief presentation here for the proposed Starbucks. I'm the owner's architect, speaking on behalf of North American Real Estate. Jenny managed to hit most of the points that we were going to present in our slides, so I can move through this fairly quickly here. This first slide just gives you an idea of where this proposed Starbucks is going to be located. It's right in front of you there. You can see that Hollywood sign that Jenny had referenced. The Starbucks sign would be adjacent to it, just to the right, kind of towards that tree into the site. Starbucks is requesting that we maintain a monument sign specifically for their use. So they have that street presence along Lamont. You can do the next slide. So this is the flip side, looking at where the proposed site would be. Once we get to the plan, you could see again that we'll have some additional landscaping throughout the expansive parking field there, and as well as proposed building. Next slide. So as we stated previously, we'll be on 75th and Lamont at the Woodgrove Center, along that eastern border of the property. Next slide, please. So again, 2,400 square foot Starbucks with a proposed patio and drive-through along that eastern portion. We've modified the one-way drive aisles on this side of the site to allow drivers to access down a two-way street from both the north and the south sides of the circulation roads. Next slide. Jenny went through this briefly. It's a landscape plan just to give you an idea of where some of the trees and shrubs and planter beds are proposed to be located. You can see kind of directly southwest of the building, we've got our trash corral that we've tried to maintain a distance away from Lamont Road, as well as some plantings that will help hide the enclosure itself, so it's not any kind of an eyesore. Next slide, please. So this is the general site layout. The lines that you're seeing there in color, the light blue line is water utility line heading into the building. Green is sanitary out, and the dark blue is stormwater. As per the village code here, sprinkler room is going to be required. We'll be putting that at the light blue line on that corner of the building, on that southeast corner. And that, yeah, right there. Next slide. So Jenny went through these briefly previously. In reviewing this earlier today, we did have a discrepancy that we had noticed in our submittal package to the village. That was the building setback on the variance list. We had that listed as 17'6" foot relief for the building setback. We actually only need 19'6" opposed to that 30, so pick up 2 feet there. The other setback is the landscape setback. We actually need to have 5.5 feet of landscape setback opposed to what we were proposing, I believe was 7'4". So a little bit less with that landscaping as well. Everything else on that list, as Jenny said, I believe you guys have it in your packet. It should be pretty self-explanatory with those listed there for the council. Next slide. This is kind of the general shell plan of the thing. You can see where Starbucks would like their proposed entrances. The wall sections there give you an idea of what the materials will be for the building and how they'll be constructed. And because this is a somewhat shorter building, ideally we'd like to have the parapets screen the rooftop units. That's not the case here. So we will be enclosing the RTUs in some kind of screening that looks similar to that yellow detail there for the rooftop units. Next slide. So Jenny went through this as well. You can see the materials we're proposing here. Majority of them are some kind of masonry with the stone and brick, with the cement board siding to help give those taller elements a bit of variation. Next slide. And again, the proposed signage, we are requesting a third additional sign. We believe, as does Starbucks, that a sign over their main entrance, which faces west, will help alert any people on the western side of Woodgrove Festival or anyone coming eastbound down 75th Street to potentially catch that signage there on that western facade. Next slide. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Schuss. Are there any other members of the applicant team that are presenting anything? Nope, take that as a no. Okay, commissioners, any questions for the applicants before we open it up to the public?
Was there any, this is Sealander. Was there any consideration of keeping the flow of the parking lot the way it is? Because you're taking out a lot of spots.
Are you referring to keeping it one way?
Yeah.
There was some consideration in terms of getting the building to work with the one-way drive aisles. It just wasn't going to flow right, and it really restricted access to the drive-through lane itself. So in our process of developing the site plan, it turned out that two-way drive aisle worked best for people trying to access that drive-through lane.
Okay.
Mr. Schuss, this is Chairman Presby-York. As a follow-up question to that, in the traffic report, was there any record of how many of the stalls in the shopping center, parking stalls, are used? I mean, do we ever reach capacity? Maybe this is a question for staff. Can we spare the 100 or so slots that are coming out?
Sure, I can take that. There's actually 49 stalls that are being removed. And the traffic consultants did conduct an occupancy analysis. They did this in October. So they also took into consideration both the seasonal variations, which would mean the holiday shopping season, and also assuming fully occupied, all of the vacant spaces are fully occupied. And based on this analysis, so at the peak times during the holiday season, a weekday would be 920 vehicles, which is approximately 87% occupied at 7 p.m., which would be the peak time for the entire shopping center. And then the peak time on Saturday would be just a little over 1,000 parking spaces, which is approximately 96% occupied at 7 p.m. So the proposed 1,100 parking stalls would be adequate to accommodate the projected peak parking demand of the entire shopping center.
This is Commissioner Cortez. A question to clarify on that parking, a number of parking spaces being lost. So you're saying it's a 49 being lost and there's 48 being added for the Starbucks. So am I correct to say that we're losing about, of the shopping center ones, there's like 90 and then 48 being put back, which leaves the net reduction to be 49? Is that how you're calculating it?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
The net reduction is 49 for the
Okay,
entire shopping center. Yep.
And looking at the plan there, it appears that the parking for the Starbucks, though, is being landscaped off from being to be utilized very well for the rest of the shopping center. Is there going to be any type of walk paths or anything like that so people can feel like they can actually use the Starbucks parking for the rest of the shopping area, especially the southern portion of the parking?
Well, certainly the parking that's within the entire shopping center is available to be used. These spaces won't be exclusive to Starbucks. And certainly the Starbucks peak demand is in the very early morning hours, so won't be at the same time as the peak demand likely for, the Kohl's shopping area nearby. There is not just like, there is some other landscaping within the shopping center. Of course, the shopping center was constructed in the late 80s, so the requirements in the 80s weren't as extensive as the landscaping requirements today. So it does seem to be a lot more densely landscaped than the rest of the shopping center. But the intention is not to block off access from the remainder of the shopping center.
Okay, thank you.
This is Commissioner Hendel Kanunen. I have a question on the 6-foot monument sign. You had referenced it would be right next to a sign that is currently there. Is the sign that you showed us, is it currently 6 feet or is it approximately 4 feet? Just so I can have a picture in my mind.
Sure, actually a good, I'm gonna take the slide back to the beginning of the applicant's presentation. There was, let's see, I'm going the wrong way here. Phil, do you have control or do I have control?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. You should have control.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, on slide 30, you can see the existing Hollywood Boulevard sign, which is slightly larger. I don't know the exact height of that sign. And I don't know if it is referenced in this plan here. No, but it is certainly taller than the 6 feet that's proposed. for the Starbucks sign. And I'm going to advance just to give you an idea. So on this slide here, you can see this is the existing Hollywood Boulevard sign. And this to the northwest is the proposed Starbucks sign. I'm going to advance it. This is another visual for you. So the existing Hollywood Boulevard sign here and the proposed Starbucks sign here.
Thank you.
This is John Sealander. Is there any ability and wisdom in allowing them to add to the current monument sign rather than adding a second one?
I can let Corey Bruce take that. I believe he's spoken with other tenants there at the shopping center.
So this is Corey Bruce. Starbucks, part of their agreeing to stay in our shopping center in Woodridge was that they would have their own standalone signage as well.
Okay.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Yeah, it's Commissioner Gasper. Just real quick, the garbage that they have, that the trash facilities, was there any consideration given to putting that on the other side as opposed to almost directly in front of the storefronts that are there?
We hadn't really considered it because that's where the patio is. We figured with patrons on the outside, sipping their coffee out there, keeping the trash further away from them is more ideal. We figured we could hide that trash corral using our landscaping techniques by keeping it on that south side.
So here, here is where the patio is proposed. And here is where the trash enclosure is proposed.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Presby-Orca. It was stated in staff's report that obviously there is an existing Starbucks in the shopping center. I'm assuming that's going to be closed when this facility opens. Is that the intent?
This is Corey. That's correct. They will stay open until this one's up and running, and then they will be closing the inline store one.
Okay. The other question I had was right around where that patio is. You've got obviously the circulation, traffic circulation coming out of the drive-up window. Couldn't tell from the elevation renderings if there would be somehow be a physical separation between the patio and the traffic. Is there a railing there of some sort or any kind of protection?
Yes, we will have a railing that encompasses or that encloses the patio area to keep the pedestrians safe there.
Okay. And then Jenny, the last question I had was if you could flip back to that one photograph that was taken from Lamont Road showing the monument sign. There's a series of, thank you, there it is, a series of bushes along the sidewalk there. How will that be affected by the landscaping plan, if at all? Or is the intent to keep those plants there, or is there a new landscaping plan for that area?
Jenny, could you forward or go back to the landscape plan that's shown?
Sure, yeah.
I believe the intent was to maintain that existing landscaping. Yeah, it looks like they're maintaining the majority of that existing landscaping there.
That is correct. This is Scott DeGiulio with RTM Engineering. The intent is to keep that shrub row intact.
Okay, so that'll provide a little screening with all the cars queuing up there, it sounds like.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and then the last question I had was on the monument sign. I hesitate to go back to that, but it seems a little inelegant to have two monument signs right next to each other. Was there any other solution looked at to kind of separate the, the branding of those two signs a little bit?
So we've briefly discussed this internally and have potentially considered on the southwest side of the drive-through lane, on that curve, that southern curve, putting their monument sign there gives it separation from the Hollywood sign and kind of gives it its own presence in that area. Right, yeah, right where the cursor is.
Right here.
This is Commissioner Baylog. Regarding the sign, where it's proposed on this plan, who sees that? You see it as you're pulling in off of Lamont Road and passing Starbucks? Because you won't see that from 75th Street, right?
Depending on where you are along the street, I mean, you got to be looking for it, I guess, just like any other kind of monument sign.
Okay, because isn't there a gas station like right in front of that?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it would certainly seem like a better place would be where you just described on the south, on that southeastern curve. But just my opinion.
The John Sealander here. Does the village have any restrictions on where the signs can be placed? Do they have to be at a corner or?
No, they don't have to be at a corner. Of course, they would have to revise the landscape plan to move the sign to the south at that curve where the drive-through is. I think they'd have to remove a portion of that row of bushes there. So there was some visibility. But yeah, there's no requirement that it has to be at the corner.
There's those eight new plants being put at the south end of the building on the road. That might be a good location as well, real close to Starbucks.
Sorry, you said south of the proposed building?
Lined up with the south end of the building, yes. On Lamont Road.
Okay, this area here. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, there's 8 new SPs, 8 SP, once established shear into hedge to match adjacent shrub.
Yeah, that may be a possibility as well.
This is Scott with RTM Engineering. You would lose a major portion of that hedgerow of bushes to get any visibility to the sign.
It looks like, I don't know where you can put it at. So there's that, what is that in front of those 8? Is that a box or is that just a image of
Are
grass?
you referring to south, closer to the southern Lamont Road entrance?
No, just next to those 8 SPs. There's a
Okay.
box there. I don't know if that's just grass or if that is actually a box. The hedgerow.
So there is actually a leasing sign there now, correct, Corey? Isn't that a leasing sign?
So that's our existing management sign, I believe, in the location you're talking about. It's kind of, it was from the prior owner, Kimco. They had put it up and we just kind of put our name on it. And it says the name of the shopping center as well. I don't believe that sign is 6 feet tall either. I believe it's a shorter sign, I believe.
Well, it's an option. That's all I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, the concern is how much, I mean, the hedge does provide some screening to the proposed drive-through to get the visibility that that Starbucks would want from the sign. Likely it would require quite a bit of removal either to the north or the south of where those proposed new shrubs are going. But it's certainly something we can talk through with the applicant.
Yeah, we can circle back with Starbucks. This is Scott Schust. We could circle back with Starbucks, see if they'd be accepting to either get between where those hedgerows are or do something on that southeast corner and maybe modify the hedgerow there with some of the newer landscaping, just so Starbucks can get some distance away from that Hollywood sign.
It's Commissioner Cortez. I mean, that or if they're willing to do something with the Hollywood sign, modifying there, but something seems like it would be a better choice. So.
Okay, any other questions of different topics from the commissioners?
Well, in lines of parking, John Sealander. So Jameson's and Carrabba's, is that part of the parking allotment you've talked about? Or is that separate?
That's part of it. They're all part of the overall PUD.
So that whole corner, even whatever the soup and those other stores.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the three outlots, the where Zoop and Noodles is, the Jameson's and the Carrabba's.
That's great. And then in lines of Starbucks, I mean, used to be have lots of people sitting for long periods of time. Your drive-throughs now become the real moneymaker, I think, for them. What do they typically need for parking, and would you say that a quarter of this parking is probably rarely used? Or can you give me any guidance on that?
So internally, Starbucks typically has one stall per 100 square feet. So their goal here would be 24 parking stalls allotted to them. With the modifications in parking, that would still maintain about 24, 25 stalls for the rest of the shopping center.
So there's a good chance that the lower section of this parking lot will still be available for Kirkland's and Club Pilates and whatnot. Not that Starbucks is going to like that, but the other tenants aren't going to like what we're doing here. So.
Sure, right.
So.
Yeah, and again, it's not going to be restricted. It's all part of the same lot. And again, I just want to point out that the peak time for Starbucks is in the early morning hours prior to the retail stores even being open.
Right. Can we have a pathway, John Sealander again? Can you have a pathway that's put in from this southern little spot off to the right, going to Kirkland's, so that they don't have to trample on your landscaping?
I guess that can be accommodated, but then you are losing landscaping. So I guess you'd have to balance that.
Actually, John, the Kirkland's building doesn't start until that drive opening, because there's parking along the eastern side of the Kirkland's building.
Right.
And certainly these parking spaces along the western drive aisle will have the same access as they did previously to the store to the south. There's typically an end island at the end of each of the parking rows that are there now.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners before we move to public questions? Okay, thank you, applicants. At this time, we'll now give members of our virtual public the opportunity to email in their questions and comments to be read into the official record. Please send in your questions and comments to commentspc@vil.woodridge.il.us. The address is there on the screen. Upon receipt, staff will read in your questions and/or comments into the official record, and the applicant's witnesses, and village staff will respond as needed. So, Director Porter, do we have any public comments or questions as of yet?
As of this point, Chairman Presbyarka, we do not. Staff again is monitoring emails. Again, viewing public, get your comments and questions in to commentspc@vil.woodridge.il.us. Again, due to the 1-minute delay, staff will be the chairman will be providing additional time to allow for comments. Again, this silence is purposeful. Staff is checking email to verify if we're receiving any comments with respect to this case consideration. Chairman Presbyarka, we have not received any comments with respect to this case consideration.
Okay, thank you, Director Porter. Do the applicants desire to make a brief summation?
I have nothing else to add other than saying thank you guys for trying to maintain a modicum of normalcy by figuring out a way to have this public hearing.
This is Corey Bruce. Thank you for your consideration on this as well.
Okay, thank you. The Plan Commission will be considering its recommendation at its regular meeting this evening. That meeting is not a public hearing and no statements or testimony will be permitted. At this time, I would like to ask the Plan Commission for a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Commissioner Handel Noonan. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Need a second?
Commissioner Girag.
Please call the roll.
Handel Noonan,
Aye.
Girag,
Aye.
Baylog, aye. Cortez,
Aye.
Gasper,
Aye.
Sealander, did I hear Sealander?
I'm muted, sorry. Aye.
Presbyarka,
Aye.
motion carried.
Thank you. Public hearing is closed. We'll now move into the Plan Commission discussion of this case tonight. Commissioners, any additional questions of staff on this case?
John Sealander. The setback of 30 feet, is that really more of a looks better type of policy versus it has some really important functions like safety and whatnot?
Yeah, it's based off of Lamont Road is actually considered the front yard for the shopping center because it is the shortest of the two frontages. So that's why you have the larger 30-foot setback that's within the code.
And that setback is building, not road, right?
It's building, correct. So the landscape setback adjacent to the roadway is also 30 feet along the Lamont Road frontage. But as you can see out there now, the parking spaces are about 5 to 7 feet back, which is a legal non-conforming status for those stalls. So what is being proposed is really to maintain that existing landscape setback of the 5 to 7 feet. So you'll see a uniform line of where the parking and the drive-through is proposed. The existing parking that you see in the existing lot that's being reconfigured, as well as south, just east of the inline building.
Okay, great.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, seeing none then, staff, do you have a recommendation and a summary of the actions necessary?
Sure. So there are 3 motions that are required this evening, including 2 sets of findings. The first finding is for the special use permit request, which is included as Exhibit G to staff's report. The second findings is for the amended planned unit development, which is included as Exhibit H in staff's report. Those should be approved by a motion as modified as necessary by the Plan Commission and approved as separate motions. And then there is 1 recommendation needed as outlined on pages 37 and 38 of staff's report for the request for the special use permit, as well as the amendment to the final plan and plat of planned unit development for lot 4 of Woodgrove Festival.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the plan commissions or discussions to make modifications to the findings of fact?
This is Commissioner Cortez. I mean, of the only one that seems to be, when we've been talking about, is the monument, right? It seems like many of us have a concern about that monument sign, at least that it's shown. Is where's, you know, if we wanted to make a motion that something needed to be revised in that, as part modified, where's that part of the motion? Is that part of the, trying to scan through the document right now, is it part of the findings of fact, or is it part of the recommendations?
That would be as part of the recommendation. So there are 2 conditions listed. If you would like to add to that, you can add a 3rd condition.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if how other commissioners feel about that, but that'd be, you know, I'm not concerned about the rest of this, but that's the one area I think we want to have at least look at that more closely and see if there's a different location for that, or change how it's being handled.
This is Commissioner Baylog. I agree with you. I don't know what we would want to, how we'd want to word it.
I mean, as Commissioner Cortez again, I mean, I think the wording I'm thinking is, you know, we would like to, there would have to be a different location for the monuments versus, and the staff, we would work with staff to find a location which preserves landscaping while moving it away from the existing monument sign. Something like that. That'd be my own thoughts.
So you want to add as condition C that would say something like that.
This Commissioner Cortez, yes, that's what I'm thinking. If others are in agreement with that.
Yeah, makes sense.
I agree. This is Nancy Bailog.
If I could just suggest some language, and maybe
We were
could be
hoping.
repeated in the recommendation.
Yep.
So add condition C, I believe, that the applicant will explore with village staff an alternate location for the proposed monument sign that will evaluate removal of landscaping and appropriate distance from the existing Hollywood Boulevard sign.
Perfect.
That's well said.
Me
We
too.
may need you to repeat that when we get to the
Okay.
recommendation.
Sure.
Okay, having said that, any other comments or discussions about the findings of fact or the recommendations before we entertain motions? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to make a recommendation for the first finding of fact? Let's see the motion.
This is Commissioner Bailog. I would like to make a motion to adopt the finding of facts for a special use as contained in Exhibit G and as modified by the Plan Commission.
Commissioner Girag, second.
Bailog, aye. Girag,
Aye.
Cortez,
Aye.
Gaspar,
Aye.
Handel Kununen,
Aye.
Sealander,
Aye.
Presbyorka.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, we need a motion on the second findings of fact.
This is Commissioner Girag. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the findings of fact for an amendment to the final PUD as contained in Exhibit H and as modified by the Plan Commission.
This is Handel Kununen. I'll second that.
Girag,
Aye.
Handel Kununen,
Aye.
Bailog, aye. Cortez,
Aye.
Gasper,
Aye.
Sealander,
Aye.
Presbyorka.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And now we need a motion on the recommendation.
This is Commissioner Cortez. I will give a shot at doing this recommendation. And so I make a recommendation to the mayor and the board of trustees regarding the approval of the special use permit for the drive-through facility and approval of amendment to the final plan and plat to the PUD for Lot 4 of the Woodgrove Festival, together with certain deviations listed on Exhibit E and the previously approved findings of fact, subject to the following plans A through F, and subject to the conditions A and B and the additional condition C as dictated by the staff, by Jenny Horn.
Sure, that the applicant will explore with staff an alternate location for the proposed ground sign that would evaluate both the removal of landscaping and providing adequate distance from the existing Hollywood Boulevard sign.
Perfect.
Okay, need a second?
It's Commissioner Gasper. I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Bailog, please call the roll.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Cortez,
Aye.
Gasper,
Aye.
Bailog, aye. Handel Kununen,
Aye.
Girag,
Aye.
Sealander,
Nay.
Was that a nay?
Yes.
Okay.
Nay.
Presbyarka?
Aye. Okay, motion
Motion carried.
passes. Thank you. So good luck to the applicant team through your process as you move forward with this. All right, the next item on our agenda is any public comments to items not related to the preceding agenda. So Director Porter, have we received any public comments or questions for tonight's meeting that are not related to the two cases?
Chairman Presbyarka, again, at this time, staff has not received any comments. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners or staff, are there any discussion items that we'd want to add to tonight's discussion?
No.
Okay. Any update of previous plan commission cases, staff? And I guess the one that I'll probably preload you with is we had a agenda on March 16th. The meeting was canceled. There were two cases that were scheduled for that night that have not been heard yet or scheduled. So maybe that's a place to start with an update of where those two will fall.
Yeah, I can provide that. The two cases that were scheduled for the council meeting was a text amendment related to solar energy systems on both residential and commercial properties. This was an agenda item that had been brought forward by staff, and so we felt it prudent to delay consideration of that item while we figured out the I guess the technicalities of running meetings during a shelter-in-place order. And so we felt it prudent to not hold that particular item on the first meeting that we would hold virtually. And instead we would prioritize moving forward applicant business. And then as for the meeting, the other agenda item that would have been a consideration of a major amendment to a PUD for Highcrest Townhomes. Currently, they are tentatively scheduled for a second hearing on May 18th meeting.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Any other previous plan cases updates?
Yeah, I just want to briefly update everyone on the Prairie Ridge case that was considered at the last meeting. At this time, the applicants and their consultants are working on revising their plans based on the requests of the Plan Commission. There were 4 items that they were going back to the drawing board on and trying to update those plans. They're still working on that, and they do intend to resubmit in the near future. But once staff receives those plans, we will start a review process. And once those plans are ready for consideration, it will be added to a Plan Commission meeting. At this time, there's no date release in mind for that.
And Jenny, this is the assisted living facility.
Yeah, the independent living. Yeah, Prairie Ridge retirement community at the southeast corner of 75th Street and Route 53.
Okay. Will that staff review when and if they submit include any type of public engagement as we've done with other higher profile cases in the past?
So the public hearing was closed at the last meeting, and there were several petitions and letters received. We do have some contact information. So we'll consider what our options are moving forward. If we are if we can reach out to those individuals, again, we will do so. And of course, we are aware that many of those participants at the last meeting are continuing to monitor the agendas and calling staff with questions. So they are actively trying to stay apprised of when this case will come before the Plan Commission again.
Can we discuss it at all right now or ask some questions or not? Is that inappropriate?
I guess I would leave that up to the chairman. I don't, beyond what has already been discussed, that was discussed at the last meeting, there hasn't been a resubmittal, so nothing has really changed since that meeting.
Is that John?
Yeah, it's John.
What kind of topic would you want to bring up?
Well, access, listening to what everybody's concerns were great. And some of them are merit-wise and some are merit-wise to them. Access was a big issue, I thought, and I didn't know what the village is allowed to do or would be willing to do to help that access be different. And my thought is, you have a median on there. I know it's owned, I guess it's run by the county, but would we ever ask the county to give considerations for a turning lane into that building or anything? And that's my question. So,
as opposed to leaving it all up to the developer
and the county. I mean, if we were to come in and say, hey, if there was access here, we as a community, we could better support it. And we would support that turn lane. I don't know if we would, but I'm just throwing it out. I can talk to you one-on-one too. That's fine.
This is Director Porter. With respect to this particular project, as Jenny stated, we haven't received a revised submittal, and although those particular access points, being either 75th Street or Route 53, are under the jurisdiction of either the state and or the county, respectfully, staff would work with the applicant on behalf of any access points, and we may even be able potentially to provide a recommendation, but ultimately any access considerations will be under the jurisdiction of those two respective entities.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know that's the case. It just, if we said we're okay with it, it's up to you. It might give more credence. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Jenny, any other updates?
No, I have none. Kim, do you have anything else?
No, that will be all.
Okay, and now entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Commissioner Cortez. I move that we adjourn.
Needs a second?
Commissioner Gasper, second.
Cortez,
Aye.
Gasper,
Aye.
Baylog, aye. Handel Kanunin,
Aye.
Jirag,
Aye.
Sealander,
Aye.
Presbyorka.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you everyone for your professionalism during the call tonight. I thought this came off very well, so I'm anxious to see if there's any public feedback on it. Thank you all and good night.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you.